So long as each soul shall think, feel, suffer, enjoy, cogitate, and have a continuing of self-knowledge, just so long as it will be possessed of an invincible conviction of personality identity, under which circumstances alone and only can its immortality be truly predicated and affirmed. But should any soul ever be reabsorbed into deity, again become a portion of divinity, and utter, total, and complete annihilation of the individual must ensue, and that destruction of the human selfhood would be as effective, utter, and complete as if the varied elements entering into the constituents were whirled absolutely out of the universe and into a blank nothingness. A tree saw into planks is a tree no longer, although the wood, so far as mere essence is concerned, remains as before. The tree, as a tree, is ruined forever, albeit the wood of it may endure for centuries. To sum up, all the theories of the Platonists and followers of Thales and the disciples of every one of the ancient philosophers, as well as those of scores of the modern spiritualists, especially that of the particular school who prate of immortality and annihilation in one of the same breath, are unsatisfactory. For all, after all, are their boasted demonstrations of immortality amount, and their final results and effect upon our minds, to but very little more pleasing hopes and fond desires and longings after immortality. In what follows I have endeavored to solve the problem, in a somewhat novel way it must be admitted. Yet I am in earnest, and have worked up the materials at my command in most effective manner that was possible. The disembodying. The belief in ghosts, spirits, apparitions, wraiths, and doubles is almost universal. Millions of people affect to disbelieve in them, and yet, deep down in the soul caverns of these identical millions may be found that exists in the minds of most credulous. Disbelief in such things is very clear near akin to the asserted creeds of atheism. Thousands there be who in words deny the existence of God, and yet let any one of these loud-mouthed skeptics become racked with real, genuine, old-fashioned toothache, and then 10 to 1 he cries out, "O Lord," 50 times a day, and as often in the night begs God to have mercy upon his racked, tortured jaws. This fact is, there never yet was, and never will be, such a rara avis as a genuine atheist, and, in spite of the protestations of the contrary, there are but few who do not believe to some extent in the existence of spirits. As with the rest of the world, so with myself, for notwithstanding the chronic and hereditary skepticism of my nature, a skepticism as unbending as iron, as inflexible as stone, I, from an early childhood, entertained a certain vague, indefinite belief in the existence of a spectral gentry of another world. Yet with this belief, there was not the least realization in my mind that the objects of my belief had the faintest or most distant relationship to the human people and flesh and blood whom I was daily saw about me. There was nothing very singular in that, however, for I merely resembled the millions of today who, while entertaining the most undoubted and, in some respects, salutary beliefs in ghosts, yet practically seem not to have the most distant idea that in doing so they are fully accepting the mystic's faith, that this self-same ghosts are but the spirits of mortals who dwell beyond the veil. Even in my early days I strove, by inquiry and by reading such books upon the subjects as fell in my way, to find out whether or not this earthly life was the only allotment of man, poor, care-ridden, unhappy man. Child as I was, I felt that the incompleteness of the subsolar things, and longed to know if our experiences here or were not all that we had to hope for or look forward to. The belief in ghosts did not help me any, for the ghosts and spirit were synonyms never once struck my mind. To the innumerable questions propounded by me to my elders, in the expectation of eliciting satisfactory replies, the old stereotyped response was given, to wit, mankind have souls, and these souls live when the body is dead and returned into the dust of the ground. But what the soul was, whence it came, what was its nature, form, shape, and size, and whether it went after a loss of its body. I could gain not the slightest information, for every answer given to me was unsatisfactory, as would be the Platonic theory to a modern philosopher of the transcendental order. After a while, these repeated failures produced their legitimate fruit. At first, a little doubt crept in that challenged all that I had gathered. It grew apace from finally settled into a sort of the atheism, from which I was happily rescued from my sister Harriet, and from her good old father Varela, a Spanish priest, by whom I was duly baptized and received into the bosom of the Roman Catholic Church in my native city, New York. How long that connection lasted cannot now be told, but something that occurred disgusted me, and forthwith the Pope had a new foe in my humble person. Years of doubt again succeeded after this relapse, during which my belief in ghosts grew stronger and still more strong. My mind became subject to certain peculiar states, a sort of raptness, so to express it, a condition precisely identical with that now claimed by thousands in the land to be spiritually induced. The supposition that it is so may be correct, and may be that this condition is the result of development of a new sense or faculty in the mind. It matters not which, albeit I am inclined toward the latter hypothesis. In these states, to which I became at times subject, it seemed to me that I held converse with ghosts, but for a long time was totally unable to realize that they were human spirits. Much of the history of my psychical life was for years been before the world, and therefore need not to be repeated here. Consequently, we will pass over several years, to the date of the first occurrence of the Rochester knocklings. At the first opportunity, the